Hey, Jeff Lerner here, and in this video we are talking about how to train your brain. And before we talk about how to train your brain though, I am going to take a moment and convince you of why you need to train your brain, why in the world we live in, brain training is an ongoing, essential, must skill for life, because the world has changed and we have to adapt with it. So that said, let's talk about how to train your brain. Getting smarter, right? I think a lot of us have been trained and reared and indoctrinated our whole life to think that, you know, smarts are kind of just something that we're either born with or that we developed once upon a time up to maybe around the time our primary education stopped. And then we kind of just did the best we had with what we had to work with, and getting smarter is not really a part of the plan. A lot of people say the brain is a muscle. Maybe you've heard that. I really believe wholeheartedly that the mind is like the body, which is that it does adapt, you know, for better or for worse based on how it's used, and that you can train it at any given point in your life, and that certainly beyond a certain point of use and breakdown and fatigue, it gets harder and harder to train the mind. I think most 95-year-olds would probably say, like, I'm moving a little slower than I was at 35, but it never really changes the reality that you can train your brain at any point in your life. And I would argue that in the world we live in now, you actually have to. And this is sort of the big fundamental shift that I talk about a lot. I talk about it in my training company. I talk about it in my videos a lot. I talk about it with young entrepreneurs and really young anybody's who are trying to sort of evaluate the course of their life. And I actually have a video about it, that multiple videos where I talk about the way education has changed, the responsibilities of education, the paradigm and sort of the frameworks they use for education have changed. But first and foremost, I think it's the shift in education has been that we as individuals are responsible for getting and staying and growing in education and as educated beings through the course of our life. And the real reason for this is because the pace has changed in the world we live in. For most of human history, you could become educated about a thing, and then you could go do the thing over the course of, long periods of your life, and more or less the thing itself didn't change that much. If you became an oil painter, there were, occasional breakthroughs and innovations in oil painting and new techniques, and you maybe kind of have read a book every now and then or stay abreast lightly, but the fundamentals didn't change that much over, years and decades of time. What's changed now, I believe, in the world is that it's not certain specialized industries that lend themselves to continuing education. It's everyone. It's just by virtue of being alive and, functioning in the world that we live in, you have to continually be educated. I look at, I don't want to say older people, because I think that would be unfair characterization, because I have a lot of people in my community that are older, but that are really, really working hard to get totally up to speed on, newer, quote, younger technologies. But there are, certainly people, some of them maybe older, who they allow several years to go by where they kind of don't stay plugged in. I'm feeling guilty, like it's not just older people, but I guess you'll never be 100% politically correct, so I'll just move on. Whatever it is, people that don't stay plugged in and they don't stay continually educated, and I don't care if it's just staying up on the newest device or the newest social platform or the newest TV program. Like if you go turn on a TV now, even watching TV has shifted so dramatically from 5 or 10 years ago. Now it's like, if you're sitting there watching a commercial and somebody else walks in the room, they'll be like, what decade are you living in? Watching a commercial? Everything has changed. And we have a responsibility to stay abreast of it, because I would say primarily a professional level, like in terms of the part of our life where we work and we're productive and we generate income and exchange value with the world. But even in our personal life and all aspects of life, if you don't stay up on things, you're kind of getting left behind. And I have a real distinct vantage point on this as the head of Entre Institute, where essentially we teach digital education, we teach digital business, I should say, to people that are wanting to start a side hustle or generate income and learn about the different business models and the different opportunities that are available online. And I get to work with a gamut of people who come at it from different places as far as their overall up-to-dateness on technology and trends. And you just see what a massive handicap it is in the world we live in. People who don't stay educated, and by educated I mean self-educated. That's the big paradigm shift that I've seen in the world. It used to be that education was kind of a thing that happened to you up to a point where education was rewarded with certification, and then you went on to your professional life. And that was kind of the model, you know, whether you got educated through the time you were 18 or you got educated through the time you were 22, or educated, if you're like me, didn't finish college till you're almost 30, whatever the case was, your education was sort of bookended, and then you went to work. And that's what I'm suggesting has changed so much, is that education is, to me, it's like diet. That's like saying, you know, that oh, well, I stopped eating well when I was 22, and now I just kind of do whatever. Your body's going to fall apart. You don't have the luxury to discontinue this education at any point in your life now. And I would say that it's, the term I use is, it's changed from a phase to a thread. Education is now a thread that needs to run through your entire life. And frankly, and thankfully, the internet has made that super easy. It's also made it super affordable. Doesn't mean you have to rack up student debt for the rest of your life. I frankly have learned more online through, you know, relatively inexpensive courses and trainings that I've paid for, and even the coaching and higher end programs that I've paid for are still less expensive than traditional college education. And certainly in terms of measuring the result by what I've been able to go do professionally, I've made a whole heck of a lot more money from stuff that I learned on the internet than I ever made from stuff that I learned in college. And I think that that's honestly kind of the world that we live in now. So all that to say, how do you train your brain so that you're always in a receiving, processing mode for information? Because that's the biggest shift that I see, is that I think we kind of go into this like adult mode. And I think some of it is cognitive, but I think a lot of it is more like just psychological and almost sociological, where we don't, as adults, we don't like to look stupid. We don't like to feel dumb. We don't like to feel inadequate. And yet the whole learning framework, the whole learning model is based on not knowing things. So in order to learn, you have to constantly be bumping up against what you don't know. And as adults, we're sort of conditioned to want to look put together. We want to look, you know, mature and responsible. And I think we're just less inclined to constantly want to confront the things that we don't know. It's almost like a pride thing, like an ego thing. And I think that's, as much as the cognitive, I think that's actually more than the cognitive, the reason why adults a lot of times resist ongoing education. Personally, I've gotten to the point where I love bumping up against stuff that I don't know. I love finding opportunities for growth and improvement. You can't find opportunities to build strength without finding weakness. That's like the fundamental thing you have to accept. So that's step one to training your brain, is to sort of humbly step into this place where you go, man, I love not knowing stuff. I love my lack of competence. I love my lack of mastery or expertise, or even my lack of exposure to a certain thing, because wherever those gaps are, those are the places where I can improve. Assuming you come with me on that, then step one is you got to read. You just got to start reading. And I would recommend that you read physical books. I think there's a way that information is packaged and presented on the internet. And I have a whole video, I actually have multiple videos about this, but one in particular that I'll put a link to below this video that's about how to read more books. In terms of just raw brain exercise, you know, to me, books are the gym of the mind. It's just where you go to push and press and grow and get stronger and get better. There's so many things that happen in the brain. And again, I have multiple videos about it, and I'll put at least one link below this video. But I think that we are really fooling ourselves to think that we can train our brain to the fullest extent, certainly, without tapping into not only the process of reading and the process of processing what we read mentally, but also the minds themselves that we step into. Books allow you to think the thoughts of some of the smartest people in the world. You know, it's like getting to inhabit Tiger Woods' body while he swings a golf club or something. Imagine how much better your golf game would be if you could just feel what Tiger Woods feels back in his prime when he's swinging the club. If you could just literally develop the muscle memory through his actual golf stroke, how much better would your golf game get? Well, we can't do that. We can't inhabit other people's bodies, but we can inhabit other people's minds. You can literally think other people's thoughts through books. So if you're resisting reading, you're basically saying, no, 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 no. I've got all the smarts already. I don't need to think the thoughts of some of the smartest people on earth. I'll just think my own thoughts and be good. Doesn't make a lot of sense when we put it that way, right? So read and read a lot. The next thing that I think is hugely important as far as training and developing your brain is to make sure that you are both creating and coordinating. Now, there's a lot of talk in entrepreneurial circles about the difference, and you can look this up, between the maker's mind and the manager's mind. And also they talk about in terms of the maker's schedule and the manager's schedule. And I don't have time in this video to cram all that in, but there's an article. It was written by, I can't remember the guy's name. He's the guy that founded Y Combinator, which is a big entrepreneurial incubator and capital fund. But anyways, he talks about the maker's mind and the manager's mind. And basically, they're two different ways of being, one of which is creating and actually manifesting the energy and the drive to see a long-form project all the way through its creative form. This could be like coding a piece of software. It could be writing a piece of music. It could be, it can have business application of like creating a really great sales presentation, something where it's not about hitting the deadline, it's just about doing it right. And it takes what it takes, and you go as deep as you need to, and you come out the other side with something fully formed and beautiful. It's a creative process, right? On the flip side, you have a coordinative process. It's what they talk about, the manager's mind, where you're basically, you're chunking your time, you're coordinating assets, you're connecting resources. It's like project management, right? And it's what a lot of managerial hierarchy in business does, is they coordinate. I think that you are never going to truly flex all the muscles of your mind if you are not engaged in both creation and coordination, at least in meaningful ways in your life. That's one of the great dualities that I have found and that I've been super blessed to do. Is a lot of internet-based marketers and entrepreneurs, we kind of have sort of a creative framework for what we do. We write copy, we manage ad campaigns, we spend a lot of time staring at our computers. But to actually build a business for me, build in my case, Entre Institute, a training company, and manage teams, manage a staff, train, have to do, people relations, get into the more coordinative aspect of the business, has just forced me to flex my brain in ways that I never could have if I always remained a one-man creative process, right? The fourth thing, I think there's four now. The fourth thing that I think you have to do to train your brain is train your body. At the end of the day, the brain is connected to a larger organism, which is your body, and it is very, very naive to think that you're going to be able to really optimize your mind if it's connected to an unfit or a laggard body. So, and I have tons of videos where I talk about exercise and nutrition and all that good stuff. I don't need to belabor the point here, but I definitely think you need to exercise if you want to keep your brain in tip-top shape. And then finally, and I'm a big proponent of this, it's not just because I'm a former jazz musician who did this for a living. I truly believe everybody needs to do it. And it is some form of improvisation, some form of real-time creation. It's frankly one of the reasons I make these videos. I don't script these out. I take a few notes. I have a very loose idea of what I'm going to say. But making it up on the fly is one of the most stimulating things you can do for purposes of brain development, whether it's music, whether it's taking an improv class, whether it's shooting unscripted YouTube videos, I don't care. But at the end of in fact, I've even had people where I would get quiet in a coaching session. I would say, for the next 60 seconds, say whatever comes to mind. It's called free association, right? Like, just sit there and just go, brainstems, unicorns, panda bears, sex on the beach, like whatever comes to mind, just say it. Like, for God's sake, give your brain permission to wander and meander and go to the creative places where your like source energy and your wisdom really resides. It's about giving up control and letting your mind find its own path like water. And again, not to get like too metaphysical or ethereal, but it's part of training your brain is to let go, not just creation, but creation on the fly, creation without a safety net, so to speak. Okay, so that's 5 things you can do to train your brain. If you're wondering what's the point here, how does this video fit in with the framework of Jeff's whole channel? My channel is about how to have an awesome life. That is my mission. That is my business. That is my educational platform. And I do believe that having an awesome life generally requires paying for your awesome life. So a lot of my training focuses on how to generate income and resources to support your awesome life. So if that's stuff that you're into, I invite you to subscribe to my channel. We talk about a lot about how to generate income online, but also these other things about just how to improve your life overall. So make sure you click the subscription button and you click the little bell so you get notified as new videos come out. Again, I'll put some links below this video for you to check out, links to my free affiliate program, links to the video that I mentioned about how to read more, some other useful links, things you can do to start getting your awesome life going. And I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.